So if you're a performance marketer or you own an agency, whether that's a media agency or a marketing agency, and you're looking to streamline or make your media planning more efficient, I have created a paid media planning toolkit, which I actually launched a version last year, and I have updated it recently. Like I said, if you want to streamline media planning, since it's one of those tasks where it essentially repeats for every campaign output that you have as a brand or as an agency. The great thing about my template is that it is dynamic, so we'll go over what it looks like and how it works in a couple of seconds. And I do constantly update this where relevant, as I do work with multiple clients. I do always go back to this template. So before going on to the toolkit, let's just have a bit of an overview of how it can complement your marketing campaigns. So first of all, I'll start a Miro board here, just so that we have a quick overview of how it essentially works. So let's increase the size of this. So you have your business. Your business will then obviously have a marketing function. And then after your marketing function, you're going to have your different channels. So channels could be, one could be digital advertising. So think paid social, paid search and display, and then you have PR or out-of-home advertising. And then another could be influencer marketing. So each of these channels will obviously have different budgets. They may have a unified key performance indicator. But as you can see, this is a zoomed out version, right? What happens if we start to expand this? You're going to have to be a bit more zoomed in. So you have Meta, and then what you'll have Google search, PR. You might work with agency A. Then you might work with another agency, right? You can call this agency B. And then influencer marketing, very likely you would be doing this as an outsourced piece of work. As you can see, this starts to expand and get messy pretty quickly. So the whole point of the toolkit is essentially to give you an overview of what's happening, but more importantly, to keep track of what the KPI is, and more importantly, what the budgets are for the campaign. Now let's actually get on to the template itself. So I will just zoom in here. So most of these elements are actually pretty explanatory, but before I carry on, I will say that this is a paid template. So if you're not willing to pay, then probably not worth you going through the whole video. But yeah, for the first section here is every marketing output will have some sort of a campaign or campaign name to identify it. Clearly, there will be an objective, right? You have brand awareness, traffic, engagement, lead generation, sales, conversion based. And again, once you buy this toolkit, you will have your own edit access. So you'll be able to add or edit as pleased. Again, this is going to be dynamic. Every business will have different needs. They won't all have the same media mix. The whole point of this is to, again, streamline your specific output. But this is essentially 100% ready to go once you buy it. There's just a few things you have to edit. So you've got your strategy. So this one, again, this is more of a contextual element, but it could be that you have a specific campaign, and this specific campaign is maybe phase one of the overall campaign, if that makes sense. So it's I guess you can call it a campaign within a campaign or a sub-campaign. So you would detail that here in the strategy cell. Then the all-important budget is there as well. And you'll see how that gets broken down later on. Flight dates, very important. Obviously, this is just a filler date range here, but you can get more specific. Any additional details, you can add it to this section, extra details. Again, every marketing campaign is very contextual, so you might want to let your stakeholders or your team know those nuances in this section. And then the all-important status column here. These are all the ones you'd very likely need, from planning to asset collation, which is basically you gathering the creative assets for the campaign. If you're building the campaign, quality assurance, this is when you're double checking everything is correct. It's scheduled, it's live, completed, and then on hold. So moving on to the next section here, channel grouping, or what most traditional marketers would call your media mix. This is a simplified grouping of the ones that you would have to spend money on, to be fair. So first section here is performance marketing. You can call this digital advertising. You can call this media buying. Again, you can rename it as per the terminology that works for you. I'd say keep it to performance marketing since that's what everyone uses now, at least in 2026. In terms of the budget, obviously, clearly, these are just forecasts. But the great thing about the template is if I change this, so in column D, D10, if I change this from 50 to 40%, the channel budget automatically updates, and so as the totals. And clearly we're at 90%, so we still have 10% remaining. So let's say if I want to put that 10% onto the next channel grouping, let's say out of home, I'll just turn this to 45. That updates the channel budget, the totals, and we're back at 100%. So pretty self-explanatory there. And then it might be that each of your channel groupings will have different objectives. Very likely they will. So performance marketing, that might be more focused on conversions or acquisition. Out of home or digital out of home would be brand awareness. PR would probably be brand awareness. Event or field marketing, that might be engagement potentially. So you've got that selection there as well. And then in terms of column F, your notes here, this is where you can, again, add a bit more context to that specific channel grouping, very similar to the extra detail section here. So that's a very zoomed out media plan. Once you want to get a bit more specific, you go to the next tab. This section here is more or less the same, but if we now look at the new rows, they're a bit more specific, right? So you've got your channel grouping paid social, and then underneath that you might launch 6 different channels. You can see here Meta, TikTok, Reddit, and then paid search might be Google Search, Microsoft Search, PMax, Programmatic, Outbrain, Taboola, so on and so forth. So again, going back to column E, so this should total 100%. If I change this, let's say I want to push paid search more. Let's say I want to make paid search 35%. Okay, so let's say I want to push paid search a bit more, so I want to increase that by 10%, and I update this cell here, E15 to 35. That will automatically update the group budget, and then obviously now we'll be at 110%. Let's take 10% away from programmatic. And again, totals will update, the percentage allocation will update. And then column F, again, self-explanatory. You can change this to whatever conversion or objective you want. And then where it gets a bit more interesting, and I'll zoom out here just a tiny bit. Column G is essentially your targeting per media channel. So this is definitely very dynamic, hence I didn't put any bits here to not make it confusing. But Meta, you might have a prospecting audience. You would detail whatever the targeting is, maybe Advantage Plus, very likely. If we do Pinterest, which is a platform that is actually increasing in terms of its usage from a performance marketing perspective, which is quite interesting, you might have a middle of funnel campaign based on website visitors. So again, it's a column to add a bit more context into your audience or keyword targeting. Google search, again, that might be, you'd have brand, whatever the brand is, and then you might, if you want to go to create a line break on a cell, just hold Option or Alt on Windows and then Enter. And then the next ad group or campaign could be intent driven, whatever the keyword is in relation to your business, right? And again, call out here is that, again, this is all dynamic. If you I want to get rid of Reddit, you can just simply delete the rows and it should still have the same totals. Just make sure that the formula still aggregates the totals for that specific channel grouping. And then percentage allocation, it's basically specific allocation for that specific grouping, right? So if it says 20% for Meta, that means 20% of the 25,000. And that 25,000 is 25% of the overall budget, £100,000. So hopefully that makes sense. These are all color coordinated to make it easier for you to see. And then you can see again, if I want to, let's say I want to push Google search a bit more, So let's see, that's 33.34. This should total 100%. Let's say I want to make this 50%. You can see that the channel budget has increased, but now we're over the 100%. As you can see, 116%. So you just want to quality assure that still leads to 100%. I'll just undo that for now. And then closing off, column J is basically your North Star KPI or main metric. I'm just going to call it main KPI, right? Let's do that. Main KPI, or otherwise known as CPA. And this is going to be dynamic per channel, per business. You can even detail what the KPI is. Let's say sales, return on ad spend would make more sense. So you might change this column to a number. Yeah, you might want it to be 100% return on ad spend. For search, you might try and aim for 1.5. I guess we're talking about ROI here. So ROAS would be a percentage. So yeah, simply change that, 100%. You get the idea, right? You can basically change your sales in depending on the KPI that you're aiming for that specific channel. I'm just going to undo. So column K is basically a formula where it will divide the channel budget by the KPI. So this is more so if you want to do projections. So let's say again, we'll just stick with Meta because that's the first channel here. Let's say on average, we know that we spend £100 per conversion. The formula simply projects 5,000 divided by 100 would be 50. Bonus tip here is whenever you're forecasting, always be under conservative. You never want to be optimistic. 10 years of doing marketing and being a business owner will teach you to be more under conservative where possible. And then final column here is simply notes. Again, very important with marketing and advertising, just context. As much context as you can for that specific channel, for that specific campaign will help to unify the team and the approach, making the campaign more successful. So that's my paid media planning toolkit. Again, closing off, if you are interested in buying it, I will leave a link below. From a value proposition perspective, this is perfect for performance marketers who pretty much have to forecast and plan campaigns quite often. This could work for client strategy, client services teams as well, or founders of agencies, salespeople. It's just good to get an overview of how your marketing budget will essentially be deployed from a top level overview all the way to a channel specific overview. And again, this is once you purchase it, it's very dynamic. As mentioned, you can obviously edit it as per relevant to your situation. And then the final value prop here is that, again, this is constantly updated. So if you're interested in buying, the link is below. Thank you for watching the video. Till next time.